take 2 or 3 minutes just to chill a little bit and get situated. Generally people show up a minute or two late. We've got about 54 people on right now. Last night we had about 120 after about 5 or 10 minutes. So in the meantime, if you're on here, if you could, Tony, you can't see video. So Stacy, if you could put in the chat box and just make sure everybody knows how to come to the Hip Chat room. If you check your chat box on GoToWebinar, we're going to put a link there, and it'll take you to the Hip Chat room. And in the Hip Chat room, this is where all the cool kids are hanging out, so that we can chat back and forth and talk and not have that barrier, so that you're sitting all by your lonesome at home without anybody to talk to. You can be part of this whole community and part of the conversation as we get going. So as we're here, if you guys, while you're logging on to Hip Chat, if you guys could just tell me a little bit about where you're living right now, and if you're a foundation student or if you're not a foundation student, and specifically what you want to learn from this webinar. What are you most interested in learning about? It's a beautiful way of doing this, because what happens if you've attended any webinars in the past, what most people do is they script the webinar, and their webinar is scripted the entire time, and you don't really have any say. And so this way, you can actually direct the conversation that Sandy and I are going to be going on, because we're going to be riffing off the cuff the entire time, which I think tends to make these a little more fun than most webinars that you stumble onto. Taking it all in, teams, we've got Nancy from Minneapolis, and Jill from Toronto, and Michael from LA, Joshua from Virginia. Hoping your insights after she's been down the path of business owner / founder since November. So Jonathan, thank you for that. Carrie, not Kara. Carrie lives close to where Carl is from. That's pretty cool. Not in foundation yet. Berkeley, Detroit, New Jersey, Canada, Detroit, Walnut Creek area, New Zealander in Florida. Oh, Cedar Rapids, Iowa representing. I grew up in southeast Iowa near Fairfield, just south of Iowa City. Chris from Dallas. Chris was accepted for this class. Congratulations, Chris. Hope to see you on Monday. Salt Lake City. Would like to hear about the pre-selling and maintaining the business after launch, Sandy. So make a note of that.
Yeah, I think that's a good one.
That'll be a fun one.
I want to talk about that too.
Because it's a whole different game,
Yeah.
So just so you guys know, we're up to 71 people, 4 minutes after the hour right now. So we're on here for an hour tonight, and we'll spend the first 45 minutes talking about Sandy's story and going in questions. If you want to ask questions in HipChat or in GoToWebinar, I'll try and get to both of them. I'll probably have a better chance of getting at them in HipChat. Stacy will be feeding them to me towards the end. So for Connor, Keith, and Tony asking questions in GoToWebinar, just make sure you guys are in. Make sure you're in the Hip Chat room. And if anyone who just logged on, make sure that you join us in the Hip Chat room. That's where all the fun conversation and stuff is happening. You can see that in the chat box. So we'll be going for 45 minutes, and then we'll have some Q&A at the end where we'll be answering some of your guys' questions. Just a heads up, we are opening the foundation on Monday, so if any of you are interested, make sure that you apply ahead of time. I'll give you guys the link to that just to get all of this out of the way. Make sure you apply ahead of time. Yelena, our support person, is just working around the clock this week trying to get everything done. So make sure you apply ahead of time so we can get your application reviewed and likely accepted if you're a good fit, so that on Monday you're good to go. Last time we sold out in about 22 hours. I'm not sure if it'll happen again. Likely, who knows. But so this way, if you get all of your stuff in ahead of time, you won't have to worry about that. So 5 minutes after the hour, let's get this kicked off. Sandy, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm ready to have some fun tonight. I was on Monday night and listened to Jenny, and I was like dying to talk. So now I'm talking. Now I'm allowed to. Yeah.
Oh man, we went on a rant at the end. Were you there for that?
Yeah, you got to have her on the podcast. Oh,
she was fantastic. So if you guys missed it on Monday, we had a rant with, well, Jenny came on, and we talked about how she just followed the process almost step by step, just like a student would in college, and has her first business up and running, helping yoga studios take their businesses online. So that was really fun. Carrie, I'm glad you could make it. It's awesome to see you back here again. Yeah, we went on a rant right at the end, and it was so fun. It really got me reconnected to the purpose of being an entrepreneur in the first place, and talking about how I was talking with Ryan. We hired this new designer today, and we talked about how entrepreneurship is really the only path. If you want to create wealth for yourself and you want to like escape the whole system that most people go through and climbing that corporate ladder that everybody goes through for pretty much their entire life, the only way that I see to do that is to create your own thing in the world, or possibly find a really badass company to work for who, pays people.
Like Stacy did, right?
Yeah, like Stacy did, exactly. Come work for us. But companies like that are just few and far between. And what I love about entrepreneurship is that it teaches you how to create exactly what it is that you want in the world. And so for me, it forced me that once I learned how to add value to the world and that my livelihood was dependent on that, I took responsibility for everything else in my life. My relationships, my health, like everything is my responsibility at the end of the day, and I think entrepreneurship teaches you that. Now, Sandy, you've been an entrepreneur for a while, correct?
Yeah, and that it's hard for me to relate to that because I don't know anything else. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but it's not something I desire because I've had it for so long. Yeah, so I agree. I cannot imagine working for somebody else. So it's and I love that part of the creativity. But even though when I was in my other company where I owned brick and mortar stores, I still felt really tied to the old business model, and it just didn't work for me. I just really struggled personally within it. So this is so much more fun, so much more fluid and freedom, and there's no inventory, which makes me super happy.
So for people listening, I'm just gonna make the assumption they haven't listened to the podcast yet. If you guys have listened to the podcast, could you guys just chime in the chat and let us know? But give people a quick little high level background, like who are you? Oh, we've got a handful. Look at this, is awesome. I love that you guys
are
friends. Give us a quick little overview. What was your business before?
So I'm a certified podorthist up in Canada, so I do gait analysis and custom orthotics. So I have always been a solopreneur, so I've always had my own practice, and then 12 years ago I opened 2 stores in Calgary. So we had brick and mortar stores that had retail component to it as well as a clinical component. So I had tons of staff. We had referrals from physicians and surgeons and chiros and physios. And yeah, so that's what I did for 12 years. And my marketing was spent on talking to doctors and surgeons and getting them to know what we did, and training staff and selling shoes and assessing for orthotics. So it's busy. So it was, but it just like I said in the podcast, it kind of ran its course. It wasn't challenging anymore. I wasn't enjoying it. I felt really constrained, and I knew I needed to do something different. So that's when I heard a podcast with Dane and Pat Flynn, and put in my application that day.
Same day?
Some embarrassing, same day. YouTube video. I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Brick and mortar is it's very different than software.
Yeah, but that's why I wanted to change. The inventory just drove me crazy. The managing of the inventory, the discounting when it was 2 weeks past its prime, and the slashing of the prices, and the internet shopping. And in Canada, everybody goes to the States to buy shoes, and they come back and they expect with the same pricing that they can get in the U.S. And so you're always kind of explaining why the U.S. or the Canadian government has got these tariffs and duties, and the taxes are different, and the money exchange. See, it makes me all talking about it.
Totally.
So I was just done. I had to move on.
So I can imagine being really frustrated with that type of business. And then hearing Dane and Pat talking on that episode, it's, talking about the freedom that software can actually give you, sound probably pretty alluring. What happened after you applied?
Then I just got, I forgot about it actually, and because it was in February, so far from the launch, right? And so I forgot about it. I went through my work and just became more and more unhappy, and I was getting sicker and sicker. And it was finally in August that I had to realize that my body and the universe were telling me to get out of my situation because it was just sucking the life out of me. So I ended up telling my partner that I was out in August. And so I worked through September, and then October 1st was my first day at home. And I got that email from Andy on October 14th, and that was the day. So I had to look it up again. What was that thing? Oh, yeah, the foundation.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so I, them. So I thought about it for, I don't know, maybe an hour and just said, yes, and I'm going to do this. Because it was like, I was sick, I had to get out. I finally made that huge decision to leave, and then bing, inbox is the solution of what I should do. And I had just quit, and I had time to do this. So it was just all kind of lined up perfectly. I knew it was meant to be, to use a
Mm.
very bad, overused expression. It's meant to be.
It's always nice when that works out that way. If
Yeah,
you're
it was
listening
great.
now, if you're listening now, it's a really good thing we've shifted. So when Sandy uh, when and Jenny went through, we were doing one launch a year, and so we'd have, they went through a class of 650 people. It was huge, and now we're cutting our classes down only to 120. So that's why we're able to do it multiple times per year and keep them really, really small. So you got the acceptance email.
Hmm.
Then what? Was it a hard decision? You
Then,
didn't even
no,
remember what you signed up
no,
for.
no. I just wanted something new. I wanted something totally different from what I've been studying and learning. I wanted a challenge, and I wanted, like everybody on this call probably does, they want the passive income. I wanted to build something towards, build towards that. So yeah, it wasn't. I honestly, I think I was super naive. I didn't really understand what it was all about, but I knew that I was going to try it regardless and just see what it was like. But I don't think it's interesting to look back now because I don't think I thought very big in those days. Like I was just going to do a little side project, just going to kind of, dip my toe in, see what happened. I wasn't thinking $1 million business, anything, but now I am. That's certainly changed. But yeah, so it's interesting. That whole mindset module that we talked about on the podcast is such a powerful beginning to your course. I still think that was the most valuable part of the course.
You said back then you didn't think big. What's
No.
the difference between how you think now and how you think then?
Um, I just think I was okay with mediocrity back then. It's good
Mm.
enough, you know. And now that's not good enough. So I think it was just it was the mindset stuff that we did. It was Rob Scott that helped me with that. It was listening to all the stories of all the B13ers, the class prior to mine, listening to all the stories of the people in my class, what they wanted to do, what they wanted to achieve, and that just, you surround yourself by those with those kind of people. I started thinking differently. I just started thinking, you know what, I could totally do this. This is not going to be a small project. This is going to be it. This is going to be big.
I love people. I love people that are talking to you in hip chat. Again, if you guys are if you're just joining us in the webinar, make sure you get in the hip chat room. It's in the chat box. This is awesome. So talk about the mindset module. Talk about
Yeah.
you know, we talk a lot about mindset within the context of the foundation and the power that it has when you really pay attention to it. What were the shifts that you saw that were either holding you back before you got started, or that really, opened up something for you to step into?
So I think what I had is I'm not enough. So I'm not smart enough. I don't know enough. I don't know. I'm not disciplined enough. I'm not creative enough. I could go on and on. Even today, I got an email from somebody who wants to get into the foundation, and she asked me a question, and she said, her words were, I listened to you on the podcast. Sounds like you had a great experience. I've applied. I think she said I think I've applied, but I don't know the amount of people that you do, and I'm not very good at talking to people. And it was like radar going off, and I just wrote back saying, I don't know enough people equals a limiting belief, and I don't know how to talk to people like you do equals a limiting belief, right? So these filters are on all the time now, which I didn't even know existed. So so I listen to myself. I can catch when I sort of sink into that negative self-talk or sink into being a victim. So that's really changed. The other thing that's changed is prior to the foundation, I would have told you that everything external to me, so if I write a blog post or if I create anything, whatever that may be, if it's a talk that I do or a blog post or a email that's sent out, I would have, if you didn't like it, Andy, I would have been crushed, right? I would have been like, oh, he hates me. Like my self-worth was tied up with what I produced, and that's really changed. So now, and Jill and Carrie are on my team, so they've heard this story before. But now my self-worth is not on the table. So I feel like I can be creative. I can be just a little bit crazy if I want, and I can put out this stuff in the world. And whatever the response is, doesn't bother me because my self-worth is solid. It's established. You're not going to touch it with any criticism. And that was a huge change for me too. So no matter, and this was something, a lot of this I learned from Brene Brown, from Daring Greatly. That book really, and that's, again, there's just links through the foundation of people you talk to that things are suggested to you, and I ended up with reading this book, Daring Greatly, and it was huge for me. And that, I think a lot of females suffer with that we're so caught up with what people think about us. So I will put up, I'll have an idea to my developer, and I don't care what his response is. You know, it does not judge or reflect who I am. So that was huge for me.
Beautiful. What led to that shift? Do you remember?
No, and I don't know that one was sort of a slow process because I was in territory that I've never been in before in this whole software thing. So I almost, what I put out there, I didn't have confidence in because I didn't know what I was doing. So I kind of had to get used to that. Yeah, no, it wasn't one thing. It was a really slow thing. And then I found Brene Brown's work, and it was like, oh, you know what, I'm wrapping up my self-worth and it's mine and no one's touching it, and I'm going to go forward and I'm going to be creative. And also there's so many people too, and I was one of these, that I was sort of stuck in getting everything perfect or right, or I wouldn't want to do it, and that can just be so paralyzing. So if you think that you are going to be judged and you're going to be, people aren't going to like it, you're not going to put it out, or you're not going to try new things, you're going to stay to things that are safe, staying with the job that you're okay with, and like I was saying before about staying in mediocrity, right? You're not going to go out and take risks and go out and be daring if you're worried about what people are going to think about you. So I think, just not being perfect. Like I know I've put out emails to my customers that have not been great. I'm okay with that. Like I needed to get it done and I did it, and they didn't mind, and what I could have, it wasn't perfect, and that's fine. We can still move forward without being perfect.
Excuse me. So let's talk idea extraction. So join the foundation. You go through the mindset stuff. I always appreciate when you're a seasoned entrepreneur. Like you've been running a business longer than I have. And I think it's a testament to how powerful the mindset stuff really is when you dig into it. And it's even more powerful when you apply it to taking action. Some people get stuck in the mindset stuff and they don't ever actually get out of it. But you applied it so quickly and so beautifully. So let's talk about how you did that. When it came to idea extraction, how did you start? Where did you go? What did you think?
For idea extraction, I made the list of potential niche markets like we all do based on the green lights. I tried a few, and it was hard, and it was uncomfortable and weird, and I hung up shaking my head, and knowing that everybody else is with me, right, doing it, so that I'm not alone. And you'd write it on Facebook and go, God, that was embarrassing, and this is what the guy said, and it's okay because there's other people doing it. And then once I found my niche market, which is networking groups, so it's lead-based networking groups, I can't remember the green light. So David Sandbrand, I know you're out there. I bet you do. So once I got my niche, I started making calls. So I made calls to different cities that had these executive associations in them. And
And
then I,
then
oh,
I,
we're getting that little
oh, we're getting that
feedback
little
thing
feedback thing
echo that
echo
Jenny
that
had.
Jenny had.
David, can you write the green lights?
David,
Do you
can you
know the
write the
green
green
lights?
lights? Do you know the green?
There we go. Better, better.
I think so. Yes, yes.
Great.
Okay,
Sorry about that,
thank you,
guys.
Andy. That's all right. Um, so what was I saying? So yeah, when I started doing my calls, it was very easy for me to get in and do the calls and just start talking to people. I've been talking to people forever with customers and with my patients. So it was just that part wasn't hard, but it's like it was really cool to sort of tailor and sort of facilitate these conversations to get to their pain. And then there is a point where you just start hearing the same thing over and over and over and over again, and that's when you've got your idea validated, and that's when you can take the next step. And I think I would go as far to say that once you have found that pain, you have no doubt that that is it. If you're questioning it, maybe you need to do more idea extraction and more validation, but once you know, and there's no doubt. So I don't know if that answered your question. I kind of got off on a tangent there.
Totally.
But
so
yeah, the
fun.
idea extraction was actually a really fun process.
I love that you look at it so like it was so fun for you. Jenny, so if you're listening, how many people were on the webinar on Monday night? Just type yes if you were into the chat box on HipChat. And if you're joining us, we've got 100 and some people on now. Make sure you're in HipChat with us. Holy cow! Well, welcome back. I didn't realize we had like 20 people. This is
Nice.
awesome. So if you didn't come to
Who's Sean Connery?
It's a great name. If you didn't come to the call on Monday, make sure you check it out, because this is how I've like studied so many things in life. Is I look for the patterns and the commonalities. And so look at Jenny's story and then look at Sandy's story, and you'll see the patterns that both of them went through. And I think one of the fun ones is doing the idea extraction calls that absolutely blow. You know, you go through that phase where you make the calls and they're awful and you get hung up on and you're just like, oh my God, this is terrible. and you just go through it. It's like a rite of passage at some level.
It
And
is.
everyone
That's
in the
what it
foundation
is.
does, right? And it bonds us. It's so cool. So so
God.
you'll see the patterns, you know, and if you were on both calls on Monday and then you're here tonight, notice the patterns and point any out if you see them as we're going through the rest of this call. So yeah,
Andy,
go ahead. What are you gonna say?
sorry, I just noticed a question flip by there that I think is interesting one. Somebody said, how did you handle it when you don't have any experience in software? Like when you're doing IE calls and I don't know anything about software at all. How would I handle those questions? And the answer is they never asked me. They never once asked me, because the conversations are not about me. The conversations are about them, and the conversations are about their problems and their lives, and people love to talk about themselves. And if you can start digging into them and get them into kind of a complaining mode almost, they start telling you all sorts of things, and they don't ever once, not once did they ask me. So it was only until I was sort of pitching the solution or the info pack and showing everybody, that's when I got a few questions. But in that idea extraction phase, I just said, I'm doing research. I'm just trying to figure out this industry. Like, we're having some problems, and I'm just trying to understand if everyone else is having problems. But
When it came up during the info pack, how'd you handle it?
I said, by that time, you've had so many conversations with your customers that they know that you are, I mean, this is months, right? This is not just days. This is months and months of conversing with them and emailing them. So they know that you're serious, and they know that you've got a really good handle on their market, and that they start to listen. And when I put screens together, that's when it all became very real, and they were so excited about it. I think I've told you on the podcast, there's only one person who ever said anything to me in my presentation, like, who are you to think that you can do software? Nobody else really cared. They wanted to know, they thought I would do the coding, like the developing, and then I joke about that there's no way I could do that, but I will hire somebody. And they don't know, most people don't understand what it takes to build a software business. They don't know the steps. So if you say you're going to do this, they say okay. They don't ask all these detailed questions. So
Yeah.
it really wasn't a big deal.
And even if they do, just be honest with them.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
you can literally use this to your advantage. It's like, honestly, I actually have no background in software at all. But I know that if this problem is painful enough, we can figure out a way to solve it. Like, it's literally that simple. And they don't care. All they care about is getting their problem solved. That's
No one
literally
else
it.
is talking to them. No one else is
Yeah,
trying to solve their problem.
totally. So let's go. We've got some questions here. This is great. Did you cold email and to set up the first call for a person, or can you elaborate on the pain point, or you just go straight to cold calling? Can you talk about where the idea actually came from?
Yeah, my idea for my market came from, so I'm inside my market. I am will be one of the users of my market. So I belong to the Calgary Executives Association, and for years we have been talking. I've said the words, we need an app for this, we need to build software for this, we need this, we need that, but no one's done it, and I forgot about it. And here I am trying to find a market, and I was sitting at a lunch with the board of directors and for Calgary, and we were talking about some of the problems and trying to figure out how we're going to do this and do that, and somebody said, we need an app. And I remember I turned to her and I said, yes, we do, and I'm going to build it. And they all kind of went, but you do orthotics. What are you talking about? And I'm like, no, but I'm doing this other thing. It's called the foundation, and let's just leave it with me. And so that's when I got on the phone and I reached out to all of the different executive associations in North America and England and just verified that they have the same problems that we do, and that, yes, they were willing to buy something to solve this pain.
Beautiful. You can say something?
No, I'm trying to read and talk, and it's really quite difficult.
It's kind of like a challenge, right?
Yeah.
So I'm scrolling through because we want to get through the whole story. We're halfway through. Let's keep moving
Okay.
for right now. So you get the idea. You say, I'm going to build this, but you have no experience in software. What do you do next?
So once I validated my idea and knew that people were willing to pay, I sat down, started sketching the solution. So I pencil and paper and a big fat eraser, and I just started drawing, and I don't know how to do this. I just listened to the videos that are provided in the foundation on the in the content about how to sketch, and I just did exactly what they said, and then I redrew it and I erased and I just drew, and then I put it on Glyphy like a flow diagram, and then I wrote out user stories, so which was really easy because I am a user. So I went through each person that's in the group and how they did things and what they needed and what they experienced, which was, that didn't take very long. And then so I just did all these documents, what they said, and then I approached a couple developers. So it was that part was quite simple and really fun because I could be creative. I could just think. Like in software, you quickly learn that anything is possible. It's like really fluid and really there's no boundaries. Like you can just create anything. So I just kept saying yes to everything, and that's one of your little rules in the beginning, right? In one of the very early mindset modules, you learn that just say yes and then figure it out later. And I love that. And I do so many things like yes, and then crap. And then I figure it out. And if I can't quite do it, I come back and say, look, how about we do it this way? Or how about that comes out in the next version or whatever. But I always say yes.
Yep. I love it. So, go ahead.
I was just going to go on to...
David, what was it? I just saw, and Nick, and I think Krista and Denny, they asked around, how do you spec out a job if you have no development skills? Like, how did it, so with, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So I know that part was completely scary to me. The building it, like getting the spec documents, which are what you would hand over to the developer to build, that was easy. But then to actually get them to build it and oversee that process, you guys are going to have on Friday the couple from Czech Republic are coming on, right?
Yeah.
To talk about that. That I knew that's where I had to draw my line, that I'm not a good project manager and I would be a terrible project manager on something that I'm not familiar with. So I watched Dane in live go on Odesk and try to hire a developer and give them a little test and stuff, and I just knew that wasn't for me. So I chose to partner with my developer and just hand it over and walk away and keep on selling.
So
So
let's talk about how you found the developer to work with.
sure.
Chunk John just asked.
So the developer that I chose is somebody that I know and I trust because he's in my executive networking group. So I have an in-person breakfast meeting with him every week for the last 5 years. So it really wasn't a big choice. I was so worried about asking the right questions and overseeing this process that it really did scare me. And I'm not a good project manager to begin with, so I just knew that that was not going to happen. So that's why I talked to two different developers, and I chose the one that's in my networking group, and it's been great. I haven't looked back. I don't regret. I gave 20% of my company to him to make this happen. He's making it happen, and yeah, it was really the right choice. So I'm not the right person to ask you about overseeing developers because I chose to walk away at that part.
Why did you give up equity, as Connor asked, versus just paying the upfront costs?
Because it was too expensive. That's what I initially wanted to do, was just pay, keep the equity all to myself, especially after just getting out of a partnership in my other business. But when I saw what the costs were going to be, it just kind of overwhelmed me. And I knew that I didn't know that I could pre-sell that much, so I chose to cut a different deal and give away equity. But then what it does for me too, if you listen to Jenny on Monday, she's up and running with users on her system, and she is basically has her developer working, full-time in the background. It won't be forever, but right now in this sort of launch phase, she's paying a lot of money for the developer, so I won't have to do that. He'll just be doing it for me. So all these little things that break, when the code breaks or when something goes wrong, I don't even know what's going to happen in a few weeks, but when all those things happen, he's just going to deal with it, and I don't have to pay him money. So he's going to be that support person as well.
Beautiful. Any other questions on developer stuff? Krista and Nick?
Yeah, so you guys don't...
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I wouldn't worry about it. You don't need to have all these answers right now. These things are overwhelming to think about. I don't know anything about developer, and how am I going to choose my developer? You just back up, and just take the first step, and then the next step, and then the next step. And when you get to that developer, you're going to trust that that's going to be there for you. The people that you need, the information that you need will appear. But if you start asking questions about the future like that, you shut down. Totally. Well, I shut down. I'm like, oh, it's too scary and big. I can't do that. So you don't even need to go there yet. It's good to hear the stories of what people did, but you don't need those answers. Something will happen. There's a million people in the foundation that will help you with that.
Great answer, Sandy. You could ask so many questions about the 20 steps that are, or steps that are 20 steps out, and all it does is paralyzing confusion.
Yeah, paralyzing. Absolutely.
Well put, Sandy. God, this is
sorry,
so
I get
fun
a little excited about it.
I love it. I've been hearing Julie's voice channel through you. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit too. So you got the idea, you sketched it all up, talked with the developer, get that running. Then what?
So then once he was gone, so there's this sort of weird window of time where you've pre-sold, right? At this point, when I was talking to the developers, I've pre-sold. I think I had, I don't know, 2,000 or 4,000 or something at that point. I knew from validating that this was going to work. So I chose to hire a developer then, put the deal together with my developer, get him going with my spec documents, and then it's like you can't pre-sell the entire cost of your development. I guess you could, but you don't want your original pre-sale people to be waiting so long till it happens, right? So there's this sort of window of time you got to figure out, yes, I know I need this much for development. I'm going to get it development start, but then I'm going to continue pre-selling to get more money. So there's sort of this weird window where a lot of things are happening. So I got my developer going, and then who is this Sean Connery person? It's cracking me up. Oh, now I'm all distracted. So while he was developing, I kept pre-selling, right? I'd only a couple thousand in sales, and I needed more, so I kept going with it. So I just kept showing my info pack and doing demos of it, not demos of the product, but demos of the Jill, I'll start laughing. We just had our team call right before this, and it was just the wackiest, goofiest team call ever. And I was like, you guys, I got to be serious. I got to be serious about this because I got to go and talk to these people. And
just so people are clear, if you haven't joined the foundation, one thing that you get when you join the foundation, you get put into a team of 10 people with a past foundation alumni leading the calls, and you end up developing these beautiful, fun relationships of people who become your best friends, for life almost. And so that's what she's referring to.
Yes, yeah. So Carrie and Jill anyway, so I pre-sold, and I pre-sold, and I pre-sold. And at the live event, I got $4,000. I don't even know if you knew that, Andy. Like, at the live event in Colorado, I went at lunch to check emails, and I had 2 confirmed sales of $4,000 that day. I was like, yeah, so I had $6,000. So I just kept pre-selling. I'm still pre-selling. I'm still doing that, even though the product's is built now, pretty much built anyway, 90% built.
Sean Connery, awesome name, asked about is there exercises in the foundation that help you with copy? Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Oh my God, I did not even know what copy was either. So there's a ton of stuff on copy, and that was also so valuable. So anytime I write an email to anybody now, I am super aware of my copy. And they give you great examples. They talk about Andy, they, as if Andy's not here. Andy and Dane talk about them writing copy. They talk about all. I don't remember the names, Andy, but you will. Like all the old school copywriters.
Oh yeah.
Like
Carlton,
old, like 1960s. Yeah.
Gary
yeah.
Halbert.
So we do.
Yeah.
They give us we had this whole file on really great copy, and we would just hand write copy, like seriously, like hand write with a pen. I have a book of copy that I did just to sort of instill it in your brain, because when you write paper to pen, it activates different parts of your brain and you learn things better. So we did that, and that actually is something I almost forget about now that I learned, because you use it all the time. I love writing funny little subject lines, just to get people to sit up and listen. Mm-hmm. Copy is overrated. No, it's not. Why did Denny say that? Is he just trying to... Anyway, I think copy was great. It was fun, and it's something I use daily. It was a great skill to learn. I'm still not, Eugene Schwartz, that's another one. Still not great at it, I don't think, but I'm aware of it, which I love.
Yeah, I'm actually a big believer that writing at some level is the basis of almost all wealth, because it's really understanding how the human brain works. And that doesn't, Twitter and Facebook and all these strategies and tactics come and go, and everything we teach comes and goes. But the core elements of like how the brain is wired and what works for that doesn't really. And that's why it's not just copy. What you're really understanding is persuasion and influence. That's what's so important to learn. How long did it take you to feel comfortable writing copy?
I don't think I am still. I think that's just such an ongoing process. There's a point where you just got to trust that. Well, I would always get my copy checked too. Like I would turn to somebody in the foundation and get them to read it, because I'm not a very strong writer. So I could understand some of the principles, and I was a better editor for someone. I could really make suggestions, but it's really hard for me to write. So I would always turn my copy over to someone else, and then before I sent it out. But not now. Like if I send out emails to my founding users, I don't get my copy checked. I just try to be quirky and funny and short sentences. And
so let's get Grady's question answered here. What is the conversation like with the pre-sales? Like, okay, here's the solution. Does it solve your needs? What would you pay? Like, do you get answers from a lot of folks before you figure out the prices? Can you take us more in depth into how the pre-selling actually works? Like, how do you get that to work?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think back. Yeah, so once I talk to everybody, I would ask them, can I call them back once I figure out what solution, if there's a solution, what it would look like, and of course they say yes. So then I created my info pack, And then I get them on a call again, and I run through them. It's just a PowerPoint presentation where I talk about the research that I found, what everybody's doing, what the pains are, sometimes I talked a little bit about time, like how much time it took to do things, and just the frustrations. And so everyone's like, yeah, oh yeah, I hate that, it drives me crazy. So other people have that? Okay, yeah. So you get them talking like this as you flip through the slides. And then I had some screenshots so they could sort of visualize what it looked like. And they got really excited about those, like, oh, that looks great, oh my God, this is fantastic. And then it would say, then I had a screen that said questions, and so we would talk a little bit, and then they always want how much, what is this? And so I put up the next screen would be the pricing, and so I would say, so this is what it is, the regular price, and then my next thing would be the founding user price. So if they were to prepay me for 1 year, then they get a 25% discount for life. And so they were all over it. Like it was like, yes, oh my God, yes, yes, yes. And like my favorite, that you have a good product in the middle of your info pack. If people stop you and say, okay, enough, how much is it? I want it. One lady said to me, we have this component in the software that takes attendance, because they track attendance at these meetings, and they do it on pieces of paper, and then they go back to the office and they enter it in a spreadsheet. So one lady, I went, and then we have clickable attendance, and here's what it would look like. And I had the screen up. She's like, oh my God, I'm going to pee my pants. I'm going to pee my pants. Are you kidding me? There's clickable attendance. Oh my God, I'm about to pee my pants. And so that is my, like you guys say level 4 pain, I say pee your pants pain. Like that's how excited they should be about these in the info pack. And then it doesn't matter what I charge. If she's going to pee her pants, she'll pay whatever I say that the cost is.
Oh, beautiful. So let's talk pricing. How do you actually develop what price to pay?
So I think that comes out in the conversation, like right when you're doing idea extraction calls, you are talking to them about, oh, sorry, that's my 9-year-old behind me laughing.
It's all good.
So when you're doing your idea extraction calls, you are talking to them about this pain, whatever this pain is. And it will either be that they spend a lot of money fixing this pain, or they spend a lot of time fixing this pain. So you zero in on that in your call, and then they will give you, say it's for me, there was a lady that spent 10 hours a week creating newsletters that nobody read. So 10 hours a week, what is, how much is that worth to her? What else could she get done? How much could she move the association forward if she didn't have to spend 10 hours? So you get into those conversations, and they may give you a dollar value. Like it saves me, that probably saved me, I don't know, $1,000 a month if I could have this. So you get into those conversations. You don't nail down a price right then, but you understand what that means to them in a dollar value. And then when you come back to them, with your info pack, you've got your pricing pretty nailed down. And I don't know, you could get feedback, and if everyone's like no, then I would redo it. You can change it. It's not written in stone. So it really comes from the idea extraction. And I also I actually said to people, so do you think you'd pay? Would this be $200 to you a month? And they'd be like, yeah. And because for me it was members. So I'm selling to a group that has 55 members. So it works out to be like $5 a month per person. So I'd say, do you think the members would pay $5 a month or $60 a year? And they'd all go, yeah. I'm like, okay then. So you just, yeah. Yeah, so you get into those conversations, it's not uncomfortable, we all know that they need to pay, they know they're going to need to pay you, and they're happy to give you input. So I know people kind of get all up and weird about talking about money, but it's not a deal, not a big deal.
Do you do any legal paperwork? Denny asked, and I think I saw it somewhere else. Do you like have them sign contracts or anything like that?
Yeah, I spent months on contracts. So because my particular niche market, I'm not dealing with one single owner who can make just kind of this quick decision on the phone. These are nonprofit boards. So I had to, so I would talk to the executive director who ran them, and then they'd have to go take the information to the boards. So because these people, when they said, yes, we want to be a founding user and we're going to pay you $3,000, they had to, because it's not their money, they have a membership who's paying for it, they wanted a contract. So I had to create a contract saying, I'll give you your money back if I don't get the product out by December. I'll give you your money back if you're not happy with it. I'll give you your money back, blah, 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 all these scenarios. So yeah, it took a long time because all these boards have lawyers on it, and they would come back with all these changes, and yeah, it was crazy. So I did do it. I still have one pre-sale that hasn't agreed to the contract. We're arguing over jurisdiction. They're in a different country, so they don't want to agree to the rules of or the laws of Alberta, and I don't want to agree to the rules of theirs. So we're thinking it might be Delaware. Anyway,
Oh, nice.
so yeah, so it's.
Dude, I had no idea. I'm so glad that we got that question asked.
About contracts?
Yeah, I would say generally most people don't do contracts.
No, I don't think so. I think Chris Wackerman did because he had associations as well.
Yeah.
I think it's but what's crazy is like, I'm gonna give you your money back. That's the deal. Like David Sandbrand's on here. We co-work a lot together here in Calgary, and he saw me just go through blah with these contracts because I'm like, what? I'll give you your money back. You can write anything in there. I'll give you your money back. We don't like the color of the font. I'll give you your money back. Like that's what I don't care. Like, so why we spend all this time on contracts? I just, in my detailed brain, I just couldn't make any sense of it. But there's lawyers involved, there's boards involved. They're spending other people's money, and that's why it was a bigger deal. But generally, I think you're right. Not very many people did.
Going through here. So we'll go to Grady's question. Listening to all the podcasts and these webcasts, but I've seen Grady's name a lot, so I know they've been studying a lot of this. So I get a pretty good idea of the basics of how the foundation works. What does the class give me? Is it support of others, the structure, mentoring from past students?
Oh my God.
For you,
okay,
what's the answer, Sandy?
Grady. So, and I'll speak personally, and I think most people would understand this. If I had to do this by myself, I wouldn't go as far as I have. So I'm much more comfortable going to the edges of risk and craziness because I know that there's a community who's got my back. I risk more and I stretch farther because there's a community, right? So any problem I have, I know I will get an answer to, or a solution, or support, or a high five when I need it. But if I was on my own, I would have quit at that first IE call. Because I have no one to talk to. I have no one to share. I have no stories to hear. The stories are the ones what kept me going. The stories of everybody succeeding and of failing puts you in a family, in a community that you can't do that by yourself. I don't know how anyone does it by themselves. Maybe
it's
there's
so
different skills.
It's so fascinating because I think for me, like even for me with where I've got like 2 coaches and then Peter Schallert who has my man call, so that's like 3 touch points a week, plus like my relationship and other friends that like the more that you have that like nucleus of that safety of like friends and family who are there, the more that you can actually stretch. Because when it gets really scary and everything just kind of blows up like it does, because it will, like joining the foundation will literally be the hardest challenge of your life, especially if you've never built a business before. Because I think getting that first like $10,000 or first $1,000 in revenue is such a path and journey to get through. But the more that you have that group of people who have a shared context and like frame for relating, because we have like the framework we work from, we have the mindset videos that like anchor us back to like when we go through the tough times, and having that community of people is just it feels like the only way to live at this point. It feels really hard to live without it.
But also, Andy, like I could not turn to my friends and my family because they didn't know what the hell I was doing. They didn't know what I was talking about. I'm a footwear person. I'm a pedorthist to them. Like, why did you sell your? They could not understand why I left my business. And for me to say, oh my God, I just phoned this guy and he hung up on me. I'm like, what? Why are you doing that? They would not understand. They would not understand. So the foundation, to be put into a group where there's a bunch of entrepreneurs and a bunch of people who are thinking the way that I think and that want the same things that I want and understand why we don't want corporate cubicle jobs. You can't compare it. Like I could not. My mom still thinks you guys are a bunch of internet scammers. Like, oh, they're going to steal your money at some point. So I can't turn to her and tell her stories about this. She just shakes her head. She's like, I can't follow. I cannot follow. So I needed the foundation because I needed the people who are doing what I'm doing, who understand when I do something and what it means, that they get it. Like you can understand, you can get the technical step by step by reading all the free content, but you're not going to get the support without it, without joining the foundation.
Yeah. So going back to Krista's question, still not clear on something. Kate has the issue of not understanding developing, not having a developer. How do you determine an MVP you're able to deliver in a timely manner when you don't have a program and you don't understand programming? That's a major barrier for me. I would love to join the foundation, but I can't afford it. From past people I've spoken to, past foundation members, every time you guys talk, I lose my thing. I've heard the issue of programming is one of the challenges everyone faces, which seems like a major issue. It doesn't have a good solution right now. Any feedback on this? Any thoughts on this, Sandy?
You'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. I mean, there's ways to do it. There's people to check with. The MVP, it's hard to do it when you don't have a pain in front of you and you're not dealing with the scope yet. Like once you have a problem and you want it fixed, you want to figure it out, then it's easier to talk about what an MVP looks like. And you also have a coach. Like you've got 10 or 12 people surrounding you, 2 of which have done this before and have gone through this. And so if you have a solution you're trying to create and you're not sure where you should draw those lines to create that minimum viable product, they're going to help you with that. And so will your team. On our coaching call tonight, we had 10 people, and CJ and I, the 2 coaches, we hardly spoke. Like it was the other team supporting each other. And so you'll figure it out. And I know that maybe sounds really kind of empty, but there are people around you who will help you, and there are people who have done it, and they're going to take a look at your flow diagram and go, no, you got way too much stuff here. Can you cut that out and cut that out? What does that look like? Would that work? And then you can go back to your people, to your customers, and say, what do you think about this? And they are more than happy to give you feedback too.
I'm looking online. I'm also looking for, honestly, like sometimes software isn't the best way to go for people. Just being totally real with you, like sometimes software isn't the best option, and we've had people do plenty of other things. Like Catherine, who built, she was a designer, and she built like a big thing of a big design of model airplanes and pre-sold 25 grand on Kickstarter of it. Like you'll find plenty of stuff along the way. You know, I'm trying to scroll through everything here. So I'm sorry that doesn't answer your question all the way, but it's the best answer I've got for you right now.
I think that's a good point, though, Andy, because everybody goes in wanting this software SaaS business, but not everybody comes out with it. And like I love the story. I think his name is Daniel Bailey. I don't know him that well. I met him at the live event. He's selling bacon. He was a lawyer, and now he's selling bacon, and he's happy, right? Like that's such a great example of something that he's always had an interest in, and from the foundation, the mindset stuff, and he got into a totally different kind of internet business than SaaS, but it worked for him. And like Stacy got an incredible job with an incredible company. She didn't know that going into the foundation, but so you just don't, like I'm going to use this example. It's like a labyrinth. You go in, you have to follow it all the way through, and you're going to come out with a different view of the world, a different view of yourself, and you may or may not have a SaaS product, but I don't know that that's necessarily always the end goal. It may be right now when you're asking, in this hip chat, that's what you're thinking about, but something completely new and exciting could happen to you.
Beautifully put.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, bacon me, please.
Do you ever have fear about getting pre-sales from founding members, making the product, paying the developer, and then one of the founding members wanting a refund?
I'll give them a refund and I'll sell another one.
Beautiful.
No problem. No problem. Because you can't get so attached to the outcome. Like I was thinking about this today. Tomorrow I have to do a big presentation to San Francisco, who were the one group that said no to me 4 months ago. So I have this custom presentation, big webinar set up for tomorrow. I'm talking to their entire board. And I don't really care how it ends. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to be present. I'm going to listen to them. I'm going to take their feedback. I'm going to show them what I have. I'm confident in what I have. And whatever happens, happens. And if I don't get that pre-sale, I'm going to move on. You know, it's just like wind. There's also one of my founding users hasn't given me the contract back yet, so I haven't actually received money from them, and I may lose them. And I could really get upset about that, or I could just really, really hope that, oh my God, I need that money. Can you please, 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 can you send the check in, get the go, like this? And I'm not going to be resistant like that. I don't want to live like that. If it happens, it happens. And there's a lot of other people that I can pre-sell. I have a list of people on my right here of people that are waiting for my product. So if I lose one, I lose one. They're not in my tribe. They're not part of my circle, and that's okay.
Beautiful. Just scrolling down some of the questions, rapid fire, because it's so frustrating.
I know, it's really hard.
This whole hip chat thing is annoying. I wish they would change that feature every time I do it. So cost of the foundation, it's $6,000, $5,000 if you pay up front. Do you want to talk about the cost? Was it worth $6,000 for you?
Value? Yeah. I would pay $6,000 to have Jenny Barcelos as my good friend and David Sandbrand. And like, seriously, like I cannot say that enough, what these people mean to me. And if I was doing this, if I had got to this point by myself, I have nobody to celebrate with. Nobody understands what I'm doing. I need these people in my life. And David, I don't know if I'd spend $6,000 on you, but maybe Jenny. But I can't emphasize it enough about surrounding yourself by successful people who have the same ideas and the same thinking that you do, the same interest. It's just huge, and it was fun for me. Like for $6,000 to learn a whole new set of skills, to challenge myself, to build a business, and to get a community around me, I think you should double it next year.
We've thought about it. So let's talk success rate for a quick minute. This is a great question. Like, what exactly is the success rate of people coming in and out of the foundation? So we surveyed after our last class, and from the results that we got from the survey, we defined success as getting your first paying customer. And here's why. Because I'm not fully happy with that yet. Software is here's what happens. Software is a long-term play, right? If you look at business, if you look at cash flow in the short term versus like the long term of a business, consulting and coaching and information products, those are all like high cash flow short term, but over long they go down like this. Software, you're actually building an asset that goes like this, so it's generally lower short term cash flow but higher over the span of time. The reason we define the success as one paying customer is because the transformation that you have to go through to get one paying customer, if you can do it once, you can do it over and over and over again. And this is consulting, this is in software. That's why Sandy said, do you have a fear that if one founding member drops out? She's like, no, because I'll just go sell another, because she's built that confidence and that ability to do that. So we had 30% of people last year end up with a paying customer. Now, if you look at most products who play in our space, if you actually know most of the numbers on them, 90% of people never actually even make it through the product. We track metrics every single week, and let me see if I can bring it up. So every week you become a part of a mastermind group, and I can't bring it up right now. Every week you're part of a mastermind group, and that mastermind group meets, and we're tracking those numbers every single week to make sure how many people are on it. And I think last week it's actually coming up right here. Community, here we are. So last week we had 72 people show up for the mastermind calls out of 120. Most people, when they buy some sort of course online, 90% of people never actually do it, and we had 60-70% of our people actually on a phone call in their community, all actively working on stuff. Okay.
And can I just add to that, Andy?
Yeah, please do.
I think you guys track it. You might have said this, but you say a success is if someone has one paying customer in 6 months, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you need to track it 8 months, 10 months, 12 months, 24 months, and then you're going to see your success rate. Like Amy Kaufman didn't have a customer for a year, David Sandbrand, I don't know if he had it. He's got tons of customers now that he didn't have in June that he couldn't have reported. I've doubled my sales since June. So some people are there's a couple in Facebook the other day that got their first pre-sale, 2 of them that I know of in my class. So they're a success, right? And then, would Stacy say, is Stacy not a success because she didn't have a pre-sale? She's a huge success. She got out of her job she hated, so
she's
I understand why you do.
Totally. Well, I mean, it's a fair question. Like, so many people want that at some level. But here's the deal. Like, when you sign up and join the foundation, you're not joining for 6 months. You're joining for the lifelong journey. The path of entrepreneurship isn't something that you do for 6 months and then you're done. Like, it's something that you're doing consistently every single day, for me, until the day that I die. Like, period. And I want a group of people who want to go on that journey with me, and that's what you're signing up for. And I think when you sign up for something like that and you actually commit to it, having that community and with your action and your commitment to doing stuff every single day, you can't not succeed.
That's right. That's right. And I think it's important. I just saw some of the questions, like, actually, it was one of the guys in here I was speaking with the other day, Jeff Woods, actually, and he said, I'm going to quit my, sorry, Jeff, I've talked to him twice, so now I feel like I know the guy, so I'm going to call him out here. But he said, well, this is my plan, I'm going to quit my job in a year. And I was like, wow, okay, so hold on a second. And maybe it will happen, and maybe it will. But you got to realize that what Andy was just saying about the income being down here and then it gets really big up here, that's like a lot of time. It's years to build this. This is not a passive building a business. You're working towards passive income, but in the beginning there is a lot of work. And I know Jenny Barcelos would tell you she's working her ass off right now. She's working harder than she ever has, and it's a year out. So it's a lot of work with just continuing to sell and the development. And once your development's done, you've got to test it, and things break, and you got to figure that you got to direct your developer to fix it, and then you've got to marketing, your sales funnels, writing your copy, dealing with customer support. I'm writing help documents right now, so it's a lot of work right now. And then eventually, once things are you've got all these systems and procedures down, then you can hopefully pull away a little bit. But it is not a quick path to cash. Oh, that's one of your courses. That's funny that I said that.
That's it, Pat. So what we're actually doing right now, guys, is we don't want to be just in the software space in the long term. Like, we want to be for entrepreneurs who are starting from nothing. Specifically, if you're a first-generation entrepreneur, it's a whole different ballgame. So I grew up in a town of 600 people in Iowa. Like, when I was 16, I went to work with my dad, who does construction, and we're in this giant hole, and he hands me a shovel, and he's like, I'm going to teach you how to use this shovel so you learn that you don't want to spend the rest of your life doing this, right? And so what happens when you're a first-generation entrepreneur is you're raised with the mindset of an employee. So it's so hardwired into you, the pursuit of exchanging time for money, right? And that's so my model of success was like get good grades, get a good job, and climb the corporate ladder. Quickly realized it doesn't actually work that way. So if you're a first-generation entrepreneur, there's all of this rewiring that has to happen. What we want to create for people is the ability. We're testing a course right now with John Loger. John Loger made 120 grand in 6 months through the frameworks in the foundation, and he did it by doing consulting with software as opposed to building the entire products. And so we hired him to create a course with us that we're beta testing with our members right now. So eventually, software just wants to be one element that we help teach people. It's not the entire thing.
I love that, Andy. I didn't know you were doing that. I think that's brilliant. That's right? Exciting. Mm-hmm.
It's super exciting because then you can learn how to. You can actually. Here's what you can do. You can actually get paid to do idea extraction, right? Because what ends up happening is you do idea extraction and they come up with a problem, and then you sell them consulting to actually do it, and then you use that consulting to actually build the software product. I'm actually experimenting with this right now. This past week, I ended up meeting with a year ago. Colorado legalized weed, and I've been telling people they should go into the weed industry and do idea extraction there because it's growing like crazy. And I ended up meeting one of the biggest weed growers in Colorado and told her what I'm up to, told her she should definitely be building software because that entire industry is like going to blow up. She asked me to come back to her at some point and talk about it. We sat down last week and dug super deep. Like they don't know how to price weed, so they need like something to track every single plant with how much nutrients it gets done. And there's 7 steps from like the point where you grow it to the point where you package it. And we mapped all of this stuff out. And I brought my buddy in who's really good with tech. And so we might sell like a $30,000 consulting deal and then build a little software product from it. Like who knows? Like, and if it happens, awesome. If it doesn't happen, often, awesome. But I don't even know where I was going. Once you start doing this stuff, you become it just becomes easy.
A light turns on.
Right?
Something changes, yeah. And I see it everywhere in the opportunities. And there's been lots of talk about I don't know how to pick a market, and yeah, you do know. And the foundation teaches you how, and it switches something in your brain, and you start to see the world. And you start to see problems everywhere. And I hear people, and I go, oh, I could fix that. Oh, I could do that. Or I see something online, like, oh, I could do that better. And that's what's running in your head now. And so there's lots of opportunities. Finding a market isn't that. There's loads. And I remember I heard Dane saying that. I'm like, oh, come on. And now, oh my God, there's so many different and small markets too. Like I'm gonna stand up and speak for the small markets that are out there like mine. We don't all have to do IE on the Kairos and the realtors out there. There's tons of little guys that need attention.
Totally. And with every new market that's created, new problems emerge. Airbnb, for example, you could build a property management company on Airbnb right now. Like there's all sorts of crazy stuff. There's a question about in-person stuff, and do you get lifetime access? You'll have access to the content for life. We're still figuring out what to do with the community piece for our last community. We've given everybody a lifetime access, and so Dane or I do 2 community calls a month where we either come on and talk or we bring in some of our awesome friends. We just had Zach Johnson, who's helped 2 companies scale past 8 figures, Office Autopilot and Lead Pages. You guys might be familiar with. And so you're constantly getting access to that, to new ideas that are coming outside the box. And then we have one big we have one big meetup a year where we throw a giant party. Lauren plans it. We had so much fun last year. Sandy, how was the live event last year for you?
Live event changed my life. It was just great. It was just, it's the people. And like you talk to them in Facebook, and that's great. But when you see them in person and you're drinking with them and you're eating with them and you're singing with them, and it's a whole other level. And I am so grateful I went to that live event. That's where everything clicked. Everything clicked for me.
So I'll leave you guys. So we actually signed the contract today on where we're hosting the next live event. So we're getting it all planned 9 months in advance this year, and I can't tell you where it's at yet. We're going to put out save the dates in December, but it will not be in the United States. I'll tell you that. And
really?
So we're going to go somewhere exotic and warm and awesome, and it's going to be phenomenal. Lauren is such a badass.
That is worth $6,000 right there.
So where was I gonna go with all this stuff? There's so many fun things happening here. So just again, if you're interested, like we have our next wave of foundation stuff happening on Monday, and we open these. The last one we opened in August. The one we opened before that was in December. I'm not sure when we're opening the next one. It'll probably be like February or March of next year. It depends on a whole bunch of things. So if you're interested, make sure that you apply now so that we can get you accepted before Monday, so that if you are interested, you can jump on that bandwagon and make sure that we will make sure that you can get part of the group before, like I said, I don't know if it'll sell out or not, but if it does, you just have all the information that you need ahead of time. The graduation party will not be in Vegas for the coming group. The first one was in Vegas, second one was in Colorado Springs, and the third one is going to be somewhere awesome, which you'll find out soon.
Oh my God, I can't wait.
Grady, how far do you get into the pre-sale stuff? What's the earliest that one can see bringing money in?
Okay, you bring money in and it goes straight out to the developer, so don't get too excited about that money. So, I mean, I don't know it. You could do it within. If you're John Logar, you'll do it in about 4 hours once after you start, and if you're me, it takes 5 months. So it depends on who the market is that you're talking to, how easy you can get them on the phone, how great your skill set is, how eager they are to buy. But that money that comes in, you don't. It's not yours really. You have to pay, you have to use it for all the development. So yeah, so that's what I would say is it's depends who you are.
Totally. Some people, some people are pre-selling in a month too. Some people like it, and it depends too, because you know what I love about the foundation, and we talked about this last time, is that I love it when people break the rules that we set. We don't really set rules. We set like guidelines for things to do. Like for example, Sandy, like yours wasn't a green light market. We talk about like what markets are good, and she went the complete opposite direction and is killing it because she did. And so, so like I said, some people sell giant posters that will cash flow quickly. The more that you can think for yourself with these things, the more like like John Logar, for example, when he started doing idea extraction and selling consulting, that completely blew people's minds, because up until that, Josh Isaac had made 22 grand in 6 months, and that was like the record that we had ever had go through the foundation. John Logar comes and sells 120 grand worth of stuff in 6 months. That's crazy. That's super crazy. So yeah. So so much of it depends. There isn't a clear answer for that.
You can beat Logar. Oh my God, game on.
Oh my God. Yeah. If you can do that, I will throw a party just for you. So how and when do you get an Iowa shirt? Raygun is the name of the company. They're phenomenal. So that, and maybe we'll have them at the live event or something, since Iowa's so great. Hahana, if you go to the website now, we just redesigned the entire website, so make sure you submit it through the application on the website. That's where we're tracking everything. So if you do an email and send it to us, we won't get to it. So make sure that.
Can I answer one of those questions?
Yes, please do.
Sorry?
Yeah, please do.
This lessons learned, I keep seeing that one pop up. What I would do differently is I wouldn't do a lot different, but I would get more involved with the community sooner. I think I missed a lot. My team we had a team of 10, I think they started out at, and then it was just for whatever reason, 8 people disappeared on us, and then there was only 2 of us left. So it wasn't really a team anymore. So I really didn't have a strong community until I went to the live event. So I wish I would have reached out more. I think I should have reached out more. I made a mistake of not getting a website up as fast as I should have, and I think I just wish I took more action. Like, you're just so kind of, well, for me it was like, what am I doing? What the hell am I doing? What am I doing? I had that little voice, and sometimes that stopped me from action, and now wouldn't stop me. So I think we talked. Was it? Oh, Jenny, which you said, if you did it again, how much faster it all would happen. I wouldn't hesitate on my calls. I'd just get right to it. But I don't want to start again. I just want to make this one big.
This is why, like, it will be the hardest challenge of your life, and it will be so worth it, because once you go through it once, you can do it again. And that's what's so special about it. That's why I say it's hardest to make your first $1,000. It's actually easier to make your first 10 grand than it is to make your first 1,000. And I think it's easier to probably make your first 50 grand than it is to make your first 10 grand, because there's so much uncertainty at the beginning. But then when you go through it, you realize you have the exact same question or the exact same conversation every single time with people. So it is 8:15. Wow, time just flew tonight.
Yeah, that went very fast.
Do you guys have any more like zinger questions that you want to get answered before we wrap up? Normally, if you're waiting, like, now's the time to answer them or ask them. I know we've got some questions coming in. The GoToWebinar thing. Make sure you're submitting them in. Oh, can you talk about the balance of how much time did it take you, and how many hours were devoted to this?
In the beginning, I did. I think in the beginning I probably did about 10 hours a week, and then in the end, like towards May, June, I was full on like 20 to 30 hours a week. It was a lot. But I mean, it doesn't have to be that way. I happen to have the space that I could do that during the day and still be a mom at night and get my son to school in the morning and so on, where a lot of the people that were working full time, they ended up doing, through lunch hour and getting up early, working in the evenings and just making their calls, to a different time zone that would be in their business hours. So yeah, it's a significant investment. Like, you got to be serious about it. You got to really want it. You got to be really determined and really dig deep and make sure this is the right thing, because it's not passive. You don't just sit back and it happens. You are working, and you are thinking, and you are challenging yourself, and you are pulling your hair out, and then you're dancing, and then you're crying, and then you're laughing, and then you're writing about it in Facebook to your friends. So it's a bit of a ride.
Yep. Denny asked how to avoid giving away a big portion of the company to a developer who usually works in the beginning. Watch Jenny's interview. Stacey, if you can get him a link to that. You talk about how she hired her developer. Watch her interview. She'll go ahead.
No, it wasn't for me, but I'm the exception. Most people did keep 100% equity and hired a developer. I think David Sambran, who I keep mentioning here, he and CJ, we have a co-working thing in Calgary, so we're 3 foundationers that meet once a week and we work together, and so we watch each other's progress and can help each other out. And what we were saying, I ended up paying equity for my developer, and I got a good guy, and he's awesome, and it's done, and he had a team behind him, and it's done. David chose to keep equity. He ended up hiring somebody in Eastern Europe, and she did a great job, and she was very reasonably priced. But then she just crapped out. She's like, that's a bad term. Sorry. She's just like, I'm off the project, right? And she just left. So those are the struggles I didn't want to deal with. Like a developer leaving mid development, I wouldn't know what to do. It doesn't interest me. I don't want to have those kind of problems. But everybody else is fine with it, and they're doing it. And David's just like, I got a cheap developer. I need to find another one. That's just how it rolls. So I chose to give equity to have a smooth ride and a good development and quick development time. Most people chose it's going to be a little bit longer. They're going to pay a lot less than I did, and they're going to have to manage it, and perhaps. Right now I know everyone who got their own developer are having problems, and they're all leaving or not MIA or something. So yeah, that's right, David. There's pluses and minuses to every scenario.
Joshua says about enrollment day, will we be emailed a link on where we will actually sign up and pay? Correct, you will. Carrie says you would need to stay in your full-time job in order to make it work, but when Jenny said 25 hours a week, I was kind of shocked about how much energy it takes. It's a lot. I mean, it's intense, and if it's one of those things where you don't feel committed to it, it's not worth signing up. Like, just being direct and real and straight up with you, because you have to commit to it, and people, we have countless stories of people who've done this while having a full-time job. I mean, Jenny had pretty much a full-time job and a kid. So there's no question that it's possible. The question is the level of commitment that you're bringing to it.
Right, but if you're about to have a baby and move across the country and you're finishing your master's thesis, this is not the time for the foundation.
No.
You need to have the time for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to be there. They're not going anywhere, I don't think. Maybe after that hot party wherever we're going to be, it might be it might be over after that.
What other questions? So the question, did you answer of if you were starting all over from scratch, what would you do differently? You answered that.
Yeah, correct? I answered that.
Yeah.
CJ is crazy. Our team is crazy, Jill.
Great. Okay. Did you ever want to give up? Great question. We're going to wrap on that. No?
Nope. Mm-mm.
Wow.
Not once.
Impressive.
Not once.
I do.
I don't know. I wanted to give up on my old job, but not here. Not when I did give up on my old job. No, I never did, not once, because it was just like success, learning, action, success, learning, action, success. And so why would I want to give up on that? Like it's just been that kind of ride. So it was just fun. And I might have a different answer in a year from now, but maybe it's still new and exciting.
If you listen to the podcast interview with Sandy, it's happened really smoothly for her. I can't say that it's always that smooth with people, and it's awesome. For me, like I want to give up sometimes. I've wanted to give up like in the past week or so. Like it probably happens once or twice a month or so, where I go through like a little spat for an hour or something. But you don't, and that's why the community piece is so important for me anyway. Because like when I go through those lulls and those downsides, it's like I have people to help pull me out of it and recenter me on why I'm here and what I want to create and why it's important that I do this work in the world.
And don't, I think it was Dane that said, actually it was on one of your podcasts, he said, if you feel like that, talk to your customers.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Oh my God, yeah.
And I was like, oh, Dane, you're so freaking brilliant sometimes, because there's nothing that will ground you more and center you more than talking to the people that you're helping. And sometimes that's just a phone call, and you talk to them and you hear their voice and you're like, oh my God, I just created something for them and I've changed the way they work, and it is fantastic. And that will just that would bring me right back. Yeah. So I love that answer.
Beautiful. I agree with that 1,000%. They always re-energize me. That's why I get my phone number out on podcasts, because I get text messages all the time, and then every time I get a text message, I'm like, oh yeah, this is why I do all this. Ted, in terms of why you weren't accepted 3 times, that seems excessive. Make sure you're like, we have people that just don't take the application seriously, and they think that we use it and we don't actually read any. We read every single application. Like, no joke, Yelena goes through every single one and reads them. So make sure you're filling it out, and make sure you talk about why it matters to you and what's important about it. And like, if you don't take that seriously, like, we won't take the application seriously. Like, we have an incredible community of people, and we want the right people in it. So I would say just make sure you take your time with it and really be clear on why you want it. Yeah, you're welcome. Grady, question: any advice on convincing the wife to let me spend the $5,000? Well, that's a whole other topic. I tell you what, though. It is. I personally think that it is very, very important to have her support and to have her fully on board with it. And if you want to bring her onto calls like this and let her talk with like either past students who've been through the foundation, or let her watch the interviews as well, you want her to be as jazzed about it as you are and as supportive. Because if she's not, you're going to go through lulls in the foundation. You're going to join it, and then month 2, you're going to reach a point where you're like, oh my God, why did I even join this? This is so hard. Like, it's going to happen. And if your wife, like I assume the most important person in your life, isn't supporting you and is like, no kidding, why did you join this? You know, like, everything spirals out of control. Yeah, exactly like Nick said. She needs to be the one that's like rooting you on when you want to quit, because it will be hard. So I would explain why her support is so important to you, and then invite her to check out some of the things that have you so excited about joining. It's not better to ask for forgiveness and permission. In this situation, I would say no. That would be a great podcast topic. The relationship
you also
stuff.
Allow. Sorry, yeah. Andy. You also allow couples on as one unit, right? Like yeah, as the foundation, you can apply if your wife is interested in the business. Like, that's another way to get her involved.
Yeah. So if she wants to go through the process with you, and you know, she'll be able to log in and go through the videos and learn some of the mindset stuff too, which is actually really powerful if you're an entrepreneur or not. It's just good models for living is what that is. It's a good way to live your life. Yeah. Sandy.
Yes.
Any other last thoughts before we wrap up?
I just think that good for you guys for coming on this and asking the questions and listening. And I would just ask your question to yourself about really what do you want, what are your goals, and what are your dreams, and just make it happen. Maybe it's not the foundation, maybe it is, but I want success for all of you and happiness for all of you. So if that's the foundation, then do it. Just do it. And hopefully you'll get on my team and we're going to have a lot of fun.
Sandy will be a team leader next year, or mastermind leader. So so if you enjoyed being her, I think Jenny, I can't remember if Jenny is or not. Stacey, you might know that.
Yes, she's a wingman.
Is she? She's a wingman. So so what happens is when you join, you get placed into a mastermind group. Sandy will be leading one of those. So that's like the type of people you're going to be working with, which is so cool. I love you guys. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for sticking around. We still got 80 people out of the 100 that are still with us, which is phenomenal. It's so cool. You guys are awesome. We're going to be doing another hangout Friday morning at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, and with Lubos and Romnia. I don't even know how to say that name properly. But they built Glider Path, and so we'll be diving into the story then. So Friday, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, please come join us, and then that'll be the last call that we do before Monday's enrollment. So if you're interested, make sure you go to thefoundation.com/apply and apply tonight, so that we can get it all sorted by Friday, so that if it is up your alley and it is time for you and everything is in alignment, then you can pull the trigger on that. And I will close it by just reading this quote that Fu put out. All men dream, but not equally. Those who dream by night in the dusty recesses of their minds wake in the day to find that it was vanity. But the dreamers of the day are dangerous men or women, for they may act on their dreams with open eyes to make them possible. T.E. Lawrence. Awesome, awesome quote to close this up. Sandy, thank you so much for coming on. I'm so grateful for you just doing all of this and being part of the community and just everything that you've done. I'm super, super appreciative of it. So thank you.
Oh, thank you.
And to everyone else, I hope to see you guys Friday morning. Peace.